All right, you got the assurances there on whether the election will hold, but time after time, those who are concerned gave the assurances that the election will hold, and we're looking forward to that just in few hours from now. All Nigerians are looking forward to this day, and the whole of Africa and around the world are still watching to see what will come out and how Nigerians will troop out to vote for their candidates or who will become the #1 citizen of Nigeria in the next 4 years. All right, I have my first guests in the studio. We'll be discussing and talking about what the election is like. I have with me Professor Anthony Kila, strategy and development expert with me here in the studio. Professor, it's good to see you this evening.
Good to be here.
You're welcome.
Hello, everybody. Yes.
Great. Now, let me start this way. Elections are one of the very visible features of democracy. And if you look at all the elections from independence up until now, how would you rate the depth of our democratic maturity?
Well, I think let me start by saying two things. Number one is that I appreciate the adjective you use. The most visible part of the democratic process. Yes, that is it's symbolic and it's visible and it's very important because that is one time when citizens sign the mandate to say, you go and govern, because based on what you've told us, based on the way we look at you, based on what we know about you, we think you should be in charge of the Commonwealth. So that is a very high moment, you know. It's almost a ritual. So I'm glad you say that. But I'm glad you call it visible because there are other sides of it which are not visible, which are equally important. And, you know, starting from voters understanding their duties, getting their voters card and participating in it, and where possible, scrutinizing candidates so that we're not carried away by emotions, propagandas, and manipulations, but we're guided by facts, because governing a country is not a matter of propaganda. It's not a matter of I think, I feel. You can say that, you know, the famous poetry before the elections, then after that, the prose of governance. But when you get there, it's a very complex, tedious, and consuming process.
Especially for a country like Nigeria.
Yes, all over the world. But Nigeria, you know, has its own issues as well, all over the world. So how far so far? Well, I think there is marginal improvement. Okay. I think you asked a question in your intro, you know, #1 question, will elections hold? I really appreciate the fact that INEC and all those authorities have come out to say, come rain or shine, elections will hold as planned. That is what institution is about. Election is like Christmas Day. It's a fixed day. You know, it's not something you say, should we change it or not? Anytime we postpone something like election, it's a failure. And I hope INEC and others will not disappoint me, because now I'm giving them thumbs up. The first step, you know, the whole essence of institution, you and I can have problems. You know, actually, broadcasters are better than most of us in the world, because you don't come to say, I'm late, so the news will start late. You know, individuals can have stories. Artisans and doctors and everybody can have stories why they're late. But institutions should not have stories.
At all.
Why? Because the whole essence of INEC, that big institution, is to conduct election. Every year, they have a minimum of 4 years to prepare for it. Yeah. Every year, or every 4 years, the Inspector General of Police, even if it's not the new one, even if they bring one there tomorrow, he has been part of the process for 4 years, because they don't bring an outsider to be part. So everybody is aware of that date, and everybody should be able to deliver. It must be said that if for any reason in the world elections are postponed, it's a failure on those that manage an institution. It's their inability to manage variables, which day after day they should be limiting to say, what are the possible scenarios? What are the things that might make election not hold? And I think those statements are good statements. The other good statement, you know, the other good action is when we saw the president come out symbolically to prepare a transition team. That's a message to the world to say, I am going. elections are going to hold, and I'm going to go away. That's I think that's a good thing. So to that extent, we've been reassured. The ball is now in our court as citizens and candidates to make sure we respect that, as you defined it, the most visible, important part of the electoral process.
Exactly. Yes. Now, I wonder what you see in the air when you gauge all the feelings and the build-up to the election. Some people are scared, some are very enthusiastic, anxiety, uncertainty. I wonder what you see in the build-up to the election tomorrow.
Well, I see the usual thing when elections come in. I see propaganda, I see people trying to control other people's narrative. I am one of the few people who have always saying that, this election is just an election. It's not the end of the world. The idea that, this is a defining moment in Nigeria, it's just defining for people who are going to get elected. How many are they? They're about 300, less than 350 people. The calculation is very simple. 109 senators, about 34 governors and a deputy, a president and a vice president, and members of the House of Assembly. I would like Nigerians to take voting serious, but not to imagine that this voting thing is the end of the world. It's neither the beginning nor the end of the world. We, the people, over 94 million of us, are called to thumbprint which one of the over 350 will retain their job or get a new job. I think if we can limit it to that, nobody will die. If we can limit it to that, nobody will be afraid. It's not... Politicians are very good in the process of making their business our business. Just because they want to get elected doesn't mean the whole world should stop for them. And there goes to the process so far. I still believe that it's a shame that because we want to vote, we have to shut down the country. That's still, it's still a stain on our, if you want, civility as a people. Because it's not necessary to shut down the country just because we want to vote. The fact that we want to do that shows, one, that we don't trust ourselves, shows that the democratic system is still fragile. But guess what? It also shows that some of the people we're electing are criminals.
How is that?
And I take this responsibility because, you see, the idea that we're afraid that some people are going to hire thugs, some people are going to steal votes, we should really think about this. Should we not reconsider our attitude towards these people we're electing? If we do not trust them, if the amount of police officers, I was listening to Borno, Borno states have deployed over 13,000 security
agents.
That's about more than they deployed for terrorism. We're not at war, we're just voting. Somehow, and this is not a blame game, it's a suggestion. Moving forward, perhaps after March, after all this voting is done, we need to get together as a people and start thinking, how do we go to a normal, how do we become a normal country where election is not war, where election should not require closing down, sending police and soldiers to the street, and everything seems like a war. No, it's not. Look, I have this vision, this dream in Nigeria where election day will be a day where if you have time, you go to vote. It will be a day to get to know your neighbors. Everybody's going calmly. When you have time, if you have to go. And there's no need to push anybody around. It should be you seeing people you know and voting and saying, hello. That is part one. I have an even bigger idea that one day we can actually vote from our computer.
Oh, yeah. Everyone look forward to that.
So there's no need. We need to find a way to simplify this. But the way to do it is to think of two things. One is comfort, convenience, and safety of citizens, respect for citizens. Number two is to continue to know that amongst the people going in for office, some of them are cheats. Because if they were not cheats, there would be no need. If everybody was a gentleman and lady, if there were gentlemen and ladies where winners win, losers move forward, knowing that nothing personal, I just have a different idea from you, shake hands and move on, and we will save a lot of money. We also need to think about the cost of election in Nigeria is 4 times the cost of election in most Western countries. India, and nobody should tell me about the population. India has a bigger population than Nigeria. We spend more money on election than them. Well, you see, this kind of thing, and that is the cost of trust. That is the cost of strong institution, and that is the strong of culture.
All right, let me bring in the former Electoral Commissioner, to join us now. Mike Igini joining us on Zoom. Mike, good evening. It's good to have you join us right now.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you to Prof. For his views and our effort to give meaning and purpose to the ballots.
Wonderful. So on a day like this, just few hours to election day, I know that a lot of Nigerians have so much on their minds. Everyone, in fact, some people will not sleep tonight. A lot of people will not sleep tonight. Some are scared, some are enthusiastic, some are happy. So, you know, the passion, you can feel it. But talk to me from your analysis. How ready are we for this election on the side of the electorate, as well as the umpire, as well as all the institutions involved?
Well, thank you very much. I think that tomorrow we're talking about a few hours to the election. The preparations for this election from the point of view of the commission, which I was part of, please be noted, I'm no longer in the commission, had been ongoing because the end of one electoral cycle commences another. So the preparation for this exercise, tomorrow's election and the match have actually been ongoing. I think where we are now is a question of dotting the I's and crossing the T's in terms of implementation, because good elections, or rather good laws, innovations that have been put in place are not self-executory. They require people to get them implemented. But far more important to further expound on what our friend there has, Prof, said, the fact that where we are, our battle cry is a clarion call for the people of this country to come out in numbers tomorrow to show our character, that indeed all that we have been saying, that we want to sing a new song, we'll be able to do that tomorrow, because election is the moment to renew the journey of any country in a democracy on a periodic basis. Like he said, election around the world is a period we should look up to. It's like a festive period, a period where we renew the journey of the country in terms of the individuals who must give account of the exercise of power within a period, and in terms of policies and programs, whether going forward we need to expand or do away with some of those policies. And that's the beauty of election. Again, election we're going to have tomorrow is of a different class. This is what we call direct democracy. This is not delegate election, where politicians will sew uniform for delegates, lock them up in some hotels, give them uniform to wear like prisoners. They cannot be spoken to. Nobody can engage them. Then on the day of primaries, they are all driven, well guided, as instructed, to go and make a choice after they have been thoroughly bribed. They have been bribed with dollars. That is not the kind of thing we are going to see tomorrow. Tomorrow election is what we call a general direct election, direct democracy, where the Nigerian people will now exercise their residual sovereignty, having given part of their sovereignty in the last election, to now decide by way of to hire and to fire who should be involved. And the beauty of tomorrow's election is that nobody is going to go to INEC office tomorrow to take any instruction from anybody. Nobody is going to go to political party office tomorrow to take any instruction from anybody. Even those who have been given money and all of that, they will all go to the polling unit tomorrow as free citizens, because all roads lead to the entire 176,606 polling units that we have across the country. Tomorrow's election, we must be careful that the decision we are going to make will also have consequences. One of the greatest responsibilities of a citizen in a democracy is to come out after 4 years to do what is expected of him or her, to do if we have attained the voting age. So tomorrow, INEC preparation has been ongoing. With respect to security, because where we are, we have the laws, we have new innovations that we will talk about the course of this program to bring meaning and purpose to the ballot as the best means of the expression of the will of the people in a democracy. But what is required from this hour down to tomorrow is the necessary secured ambience, environment that Nigeria will be able to speak to. And that's why I'm very delighted that way back in October, the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, I was one of the resource persons. If I delivered 2 papers on security for this election, organized by the Inspector General of Police, who my prayer is that what he had done, which was a different class in terms of election security, with 5 elections as he came on board.
All right, Mike.
Will be replicated tomorrow.
Yes.
So to land on that point, and that is that the president has charged security agencies to be neutral, to be apolitical, to be firm, to ensure that this election will more reflect the will of the people. And the system we have in place have now put the voters at the center and put the candidate at the periphery.
All right.
That happens as well.
Okay, Mike, I'm going to come back to you shortly, but let's cross over to Yola in Adamawa State, where our senior political correspondent, Ayo Zugbaku, is there to bring us up to speed with what the temperature there right now. Ayo, it's good to have you join us this evening. What's the temperature, political temperature in Yola?
Thank you, Mike. We are counting down to the 2023 presidential election, and this is the day that a lot of Nigerians have been waiting for, and they're anticipating that by this time tomorrow, all would have been done and dusted. But more interesting thing is, in terms of preparation, Mike, in terms of preparation here, Mike, a lot of these paramilitary organizations and something I want to refer to in the Southwest, like the People Congress, some organization.
All right. We'll certainly bring Ayo back by the time we get the audio right in there from Yola, our senior political correspondent, Ayo Zugbaku, joining us from there. Now, Professor, the point is, when you mentioned voter understanding earlier on.
Yes.
When it comes to the Nigerian voter,
Yes.
we've seen in many instances where people, even on the day of voting, the time they are going to vote, they're still being told how to do this one, how to, and how to, all of the how-tos and all of that. How sophisticated or not is the average Nigerian voter, if I have to put it that way?
Well, you say this and you make me say something unpopular, but it's my position because I've written about it. And I think we need to keep saying it. If we want democracy to work, we need to understand that we have to review a lot of things.
Okay.
One of the things we have to review is to ask ourselves if universal adult suffrage is not an error in Nigeria.
Whoa.
Yes, I know this is unpopular, but we need to think about it. You see, the point is, how
Professor,
can
you're challenging our brains and our minds this evening.
We have to. I know people don't like to hear because people want everybody to vote. They keep saying everybody should vote. But really, should everybody be voting? Well, if people are so ignorant, so hungry, should they be part of the process of deciding who is going to take charge and decide fiscal policies, monetary policies, diplomatic issues, environmental issues, urban issues, agricultural issues? A lot of people don't know. They can't make this decision. I think we have made an error. We have tied voting to citizenry. We've entered into this false narrative of thinking that I vote, therefore I am. Which is not true, which is not necessary.
It's called a civic duty.
Yeah,
it's called a duty.
Very good. It's a duty. I agree with you.
Okay.
Now, if it's a duty, for you to observe a duty, you need some kind of verifiable qualification to observe that duty. I argue that the voter's card should be treated like a driver's license. you should prove that you can drive before we give you a car.
Wow.
There are too many people voting who have no business with voting. They shouldn't be voting. I argue that people should show some minimal understanding of civics, and better still, let them show their taxpayers. But go ahead.
Wow. Professor, this is a huge challenge,
Yes.
but we'll come back to talk about this. I think our senior political correspondent, Ayo Zubakun, is back on right now. Ayo, I asked you earlier how the political temperature in Yola is right now. You were giving us some points before your audio went off. Go ahead now.
Okay, we're talking about paramilitary organizations, that the security outfits that are not duly accredited by the Independent National Electoral Commission, that in terms of the police, civil defense, DSS, road safety, these guys are those ones of, from the federal government of Nigeria, duly accredited, that the ones that are meant to man any security position tomorrow across the length and breadth of Adamawa State. If you remember, before now, Adamawa State, because of terrorism, is part of that state, those states in the northeast that had issues with terrorism, and they had some paramilitary organizations set up here and there, but they're saying tomorrow, you don't have any business in what we are doing tomorrow. Tomorrow is going to be strictly for the Nigerian police force and some other security agencies that are accredited, duly accredited by the Independent National Electoral Commission. Now, 2.1 million people in this northeastern part of the country in Adamawa State will be involved in tomorrow's exercise. And I was going through the collection rates of their PVC. It amounted to 89.1%. 89.1%. They didn't do badly when you look at the total statistics of the turnout for PVC. Adamawa State did not do badly. I think in subsequent bulletin, I'm just going to tabulate it to get their exact position. And the number of people that did not collect their PVC, just a little bit, about 6,000 people. So I think good to go in terms of voters' awareness, in terms of level of preparedness, level of readiness. But the snag is when we got to town yesterday, it was this Naira thing. A lot of people were concerned because the Inspector General of Police actually announced that between 12 midnight tonight and 6 p.m. tomorrow, there is going to be total restriction of movement. If we have total restriction of movement, people want to buy things at home. Now the purchasing power is not there. Apart from the purchasing power not there, a lot of people, instead of doing last-minute shopping that we see on a day like this, running to the markets, trying to buy one or two things, all the banks were filled to capacity. And we had long queues of people, want to withdraw in panic, trying to get at least 2,000 naira, trying to get 1,000 naira so that they can get something and put home tomorrow because of the restriction of movement. And this, this is like, affecting the mood and the spirit. So you can't really gauge what the mood is like in Adamawa State, because they are all concentrating in how I'm going to get the naira, that in case the elections spill over till Sunday, if the restriction of movement spill over till Sunday, that their family, they will be able to survive at home. This is a major issue right now, Mike. It's a major issue. Talking in terms of security, they have it all locked down across their 16 local governments. They have a new commissioner of police that has been redeployed. One thing they did, this Inspector General of Police, one thing he did is that they actually altered the security architecture. You have some states that they have 2-3 commissioners of police, yes, that are going to be on duty for tomorrow's exercise in a state, and that's novel. Something we know that, the normal commissioner of police in that state, but there was a shake-up even before this exercise across the military, the security, the police, high-ranking police officers, from the AIG to the DIGs. Right now in Adamawa State, they have a new commissioner of police. Any moment from now, we are going to be meeting the new commissioner of police, and he's going to take charge of what is going to be happening between the 16 local governments in Adamawa State. And one other interesting thing is that a lot of people, they are very, they're enthusiastic to come out for tomorrow's exercise. They've been talking about it, and you could see the frenzy across the states yesterday.
All right. Okay, let me ask you this before I let you go. Adamawa State is quite a large state. Are there terrains that are quite challenging to reach? What have you been hearing from those you spoke with?
Yes, the Independent National Electoral Commission, what they've done is that before today, the non-sensitive and the sensitive materials across the 16 local governments, they've been able to, get it across. So on getting to the state's Independent National Electoral Commission office, to the INEC, the state's INEC, nothing was happening there today because they've succeeded and they've completed as at 12 noon deployments. So the only thing you have is those local governments that are within the state capital, and they've gone to those wards. So nothing is happening in those offices, and I asked the officials there, and they told me categorically that the full deployment have been made, and they've gotten feedback from the 16 local government that they are ready to go from 7:30 a.m. tomorrow, Mike.
It's good to have an idea of what's going on and how the enthusiasm in the air is there in Yola and across Adamawa State. Thank you very much, Ayo Zubaku, for letting us know what's happening in Adamawa State. All right, here in the studio, I have Professor Anthony Kila, strategy and development expert. We've been looking at things. And also joining me on Zoom all the while we've been talking is former Electoral Commissioner of INEC, Mike Igini. We have been making sense of the build-up to the election. Very soon, any moment from now, we'll be joining and linking to or handing over to our studio in Abuja for more perspectives to the election. But before then, Mike, let me come to you on this. Professor in the studio was talking earlier, and he said he looks forward to a time where we can all have what one may call virtual voting, in such a way that we don't have to converge people in a place, because this convergence of people is what makes it more expensive, is what makes it more threatening in the area of security and the anxiety in the air. What do you make, how realistic would that be to have a virtual voting system in Nigeria? Mike?
Well, first and foremost, as a country and as an institution, we must continue to innovate. Because several years ago, the internet was a mystical province of the physicists. It is today a commonplace encyclopedia. So any institution that fails to embrace improvement in technology obviously will be overtaken by the chaos of decline and decay. In that regard, what he has said, we are not far from that. But we are being careful in terms of looking at the level of our infrastructure. I mean, just look at the very simple technology that we're trying to deploy, from the car reader now to the beavers. What do you hear about? Efforts are being made to try to thwart our effort. Where we are right now, a time is coming where truly we don't have to shut down economy because we are doing elections. We are getting there. After this election, we want to see how it happens. Once we are done with this election, and I can tell you that INEC have developed quite a number of solutions to deal with historical challenges of election service delivery in our country. All those things he has said, we are going to get there. Where we are now, we are at the level of what they call maturation. She's trying to mature. We are at the level of infancy, so to speak, on account of the kind of people we have had thrown up in our system, people who have little or no philosophical insight towards governance. Leadership is all about. So we are going to get there. After all, we're now doing what we call online voter registration. We don't used to do that before. Today, we are now talking about upload of result from the polling unit, which everybody could see. And all that. We don't have that before. So the era of democracy will usually be cured by more democracy. But I think that some of the very strong issues he has raised there, which I don't want to go into, because to say, I agree that the two greatest threats to democracy or a liberal democracy, the issue of poverty and the issue of a level of literacy in any society. Even the United Kingdom that introduced Nigeria into election rigging itself, vote buying was so rampant in England in the 19th century until the 1832 Reform Act, that started the process of changing the narrative. Election was not a one-day affair in England before. Vote buying was so rampant in England. In the borough of Stanford alone, £5,000 was used to purchase 850 voters.
All right, Mike.
1,000 voters. So we know all of that.
Yes.
So, but where we are, because I want us to focus on, I want this program, because this is the reason I accepted to be part of this program, is to want to tell what needs to happen tomorrow.
Yes,
what
exactly.
People need to know to happen tomorrow.
Yes.
I don't want to go into any theoretical schemas about what I want to see what will happen tomorrow.
Very good.
Things that Nigerians need to know. That's what I want us to focus on.
Yes.